Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the narrative that supporters of Pakistan's jailed leader Imran Khan are telling. It's all about what went down on August 5th, when they hit the streets in a huge way. And, the way they see it, this isn't just about one day of protest. It's about a much, much bigger fight for where the country is headed.
So this really gets to the core of it, right? What does happen when a country's most popular leader gets jailed for 2 years? According to the pro-Imran Khan commentators, this is the fundamental question. For them, everything that happened leading up to August 5th, it's all part of this massive political crisis. And that day was a real turning point.
Okay, so to really get why people were so angry, you have to look at this timeline. This wasn't just some random event. According to them, it was the pot finally boiling over after a 2-year political firestorm. It all kicks off in May 2023 with Khan's first arrest, which sparked massive protests. Then, boom, August 5th, 2023, he's arrested again, and this time, he's in prison. Fast forward to the elections in February 2024, which his supporters are adamant were rigged, so you can see how this all builds up to that 2-year anniversary and why they decided to take to the streets.
All right, so that brings us to Section 1, A Nation Protests. On that 2-year mark of Khan being in jail, his party, the PTI, decided to make a big statement. They put out the call for a massive countrywide protest, and the message they wanted to send was crystal clear. You've thrown everything at us for 2 years, but we're still here and we are not broken.
And you know what? People answered that call. We're talking people coming out from the biggest cities all the way to small towns and villages. Pro-PTI commentators frame this as a nationwide showdown, a direct challenge not just to the civilian government, but to the power players they see behind the scenes, what's often called the establishment.
But here's the thing. The protests played out very differently depending on where you were. In their main stronghold, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, it was all about mass mobilization, just huge numbers of people on the streets. But then you look at Punjab, the country's political heartland, totally different story. That became a real battleground, defined by a heavy-handed state crackdown. And in other regions, you had widespread rallies popping up all over.
So that gets us to the why. What was fueling all this anger? Well, commentators on their side are very clear. This goes way beyond just free Imran Khan. For them, this was a protest against a whole list of what they call crimes committed by the state.
And this quote from commentator Imran Riaz Khan really nails it. The establishment committed several crimes. We are protesting against those crimes. See, for his supporters, this wasn't just a rally. It was more like a public indictment. They were standing up and reading out a list of charges against the state for actions they see as unforgivable.
And here is that charge sheet, laid out step by step. 1. They say their government was toppled in a conspiracy. 2. When people protested, they were violently crushed. 3. A corrupt government was imposed on them. 4. The economy was ruined with massive inflation. 5. Khan and his wife were jailed. And 6, the final straw, their election mandate was stolen from them in 2024. So the bigger picture they're painting is one of a systematic dismantling of their democratic rights.
So, with all these grievances fueling the protests, how did the state respond? According to these sources, the answer wasn't dialogue. It was a massive and at times violent crackdown.
The picture being painted, especially out of Punjab, was one of chaos. Commentators describe police breaking down doors, arresting women and even children, and get this, filing police reports against people before any protests had even started, almost like a preemptive move to shut down dissent.
And here's where things get really interesting. You had the head of the Punjab police, Dr. Usman Anwar, publicly saying things like, "Stop cursing us, if we make a mistake, point it out." But at the exact same time, videos were flooding the internet showing his own police force doing the very things that were making people so angry. Commentators pointed to this as a major disconnect. The stories that came out are, well, almost surreal. We're talking about a police report filed against a blind man for rioting, flying balloons with party flags. That was treated as a crime. The 82-year-old father of a PTI leader was arrested, seemingly to pressure his son. And then there was that striking video of Rihanna Dar, a prominent female politician, being dragged by police. The point supporters make is that these weren't random acts, but were designed to create maximum fear.
But supporters argue this isn't just about an overzealous police force. No,
They claim it's a symptom of a much deeper problem, a system they've labeled the hybrid regime. So what exactly is a hybrid regime? Well, the way they define it is pretty simple. It's a system that looks civilian on the surface. You've got your prime minister, your cabinet, but it's just a facade. The real power, the hand on the steering wheel, belongs to the military establishment. Politicians, they argue, are just the public face. And to back this claim up, they point to a startling number: over 450. That's the number of serving or retired military officers they say have been placed at the head of nearly 170 civilian government departments. From their perspective, this isn't just influence. It's a direct takeover of the state. And this table really illustrates their point. The National Power Authority, run by a retired lieutenant general, a major general in the Ministry of Interior, the ID Authority, previously military-led, the Telecom Authority, a retired major general. So you can see why they're asking, how can you even talk about civilian rule when this is the reality on the ground?
This alleged takeover, they claim, doesn't just affect politics at home. They argue it has crippled Pakistan's ability to act like a sovereign nation, and they draw a very sharp contrast with their neighbor, India.
Let's use this comparison as a prime example. When both countries faced U.S. pressure over buying Russian oil, they argue India's civilian government stood firm, prioritizing its national interest. In Pakistan, they claim the then army chief overruled the prime minister, sided with the U.S., and abandoned a cheap oil deal. The outcome? Pakistan lost out, and they say it's because the military, not civilians, made the final call. And here's their final, most provocative comparison. On the very same day, August 5th, they point out that anti-India protesters in Indian-administered Kashmir were reportedly able to hold rallies. Meanwhile, pro-democracy protesters inside Pakistan faced a violent crackdown. For them, the irony was just glaring. And this all leads to a powerful, unanswered question. The narrative from these sources is that after 2 years of immense pressure, the people have lost their fear. So what happens when a resilient population that refuses to back down meets a state that refuses to yield? The commentators we've explored today believe a final confrontation might just be inevitable.